Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Charlotte Canion. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
I'm your host, Charlotte Canion, author of the 2018 Best Self-Help Book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. And I'm honored today to have as our guest, Sharon K Connell. She's known as the Christian romance suspense novelist. How are you, Sharon?
I'm doing fine.
I'm so excited to interview you this evening. I was looking over your books. You just have an array of fun stories. I even read, I love your website, because on your website you allow people to feel your stories. It's just really fascinating. Tell us a little bit of how you got into writing. Give us a little background on yourself.
This is a story I keep getting asked about. I started writing involuntarily. A friend of mine who's an author in England, Alan O'Reilly, he every time I would talk to him, I would be telling him things that happened in my life, around our family, in the town and things. And he would always tell me, Sharon, you need to be writing these things down. You need to be writing. And in, I think it was 2005, Hurricane Ivan came through, and I was living in Pensacola, Florida. So we were targeted for that hurricane. And I went through the night alone in the house.
Ooh.
And it was an experience I don't ever want to go through again. But when I called him to tell him I was all right, I knew he'd be worried. So I called him and I started telling him some of the things I experienced, and he did it again. Sharon, you need to be writing these things down. This would make a great story. And a little while later, I thought, he's right. I need to make a story. I need to write this down. So I started writing a story. The story that came out was totally different. It was Paths of Righteousness that came out. And I do mention the hurricane in that story, but the story isn't about the hurricane. But he's the one who got me started.
So you kind of got fictional in your story rather than write your memoirs of the
Yes,
hurricane.
and it wound up Christian romance suspense instead of a horror story about a hurricane.
Well, God must have had you to go on a different direction.
I felt that he wanted me to do it, yes.
Yeah, sometimes he does that. Well, I know you've got some new books out there, but tell us a little bit about your first book. You said was it Paths of Righteousness?
Well, that's the first one I wrote, but that's not the first one that got published.
Okay.
I wrote Paths of Righteousness, and I had it all done, and I went through all the motions of trying to get a publisher, trying to get an agent. Nobody wanted a new writer. They didn't want, and I wasn't a very good writer at that point. I didn't know a whole lot. So I thought, somebody told me that, well, why don't you write just a short story and submit that somewhere? So I wrote what is now A Very Present Help. And I wrote it as a short story. But I couldn't find a place to publish it. I didn't know anything. So I didn't know what to do with it. So I thought, okay, Lord, this is all yours. I'm just going to change this into a novel. And somewhere along the line, you can show me what to do. So I wrote A Very Present Help, and I made it a novel.
Now, what is that story about?
That story is about, it starts off with the events of 9/11. Doesn't get into a whole lot, but that's the catalyst that throws the heroine into the story. And it's about her life, about her loves, and how things that you think you've got your whole life planned out, and a wrench gets thrown in. But it's about trusting God and letting him work your life out. And he's got a better plan.
Definitely. So after you wrote Paths of Righteousness, where did you go from there?
Well, that was a very present help. And then I went back to Paths of Righteousness, and I worked
Okay.
on that a little while. That's about a girl who had a lot of tragedy in her life. Her and her brother lost their parents, who were missionaries, and then she loses her brother because he went into the war and he died. And so she's alone, and she's adopted, and she's trying to become an independent young woman. And she runs into the problems of life, and she's Irish. All my characters have Irish in their blood. So they all have that background, and they're a little bit stubborn. They've got a little bit of a temper, just like me. And I was working in a medical office when I wrote that book. And I took a lot of what I knew and put it into there. I had her working as an office manager in a doctor's office, and she runs into an arrogant doctor, and it starts from there. People love the connection with those two, the interaction.
And you mentioned the Irish. I have Scottish background in mine, so that I was fascinated. As a matter of fact, one of the things you have on your website is a group, and I'm sorry, I can't remember their name, but they were a Scottish group that played Amazing Grace.
Yes, they went to Scotland to play that, and they're playing it right in front of a castle there. And
Is that
it just,
castle in, is that
pardon?
castle in any of your books? Is the castle in any of your books?
I think they talk about castles. I love castles. I collect castles. So, and I've always wanted to go into a castle and never have had the opportunity. But so I write about it a little bit. But that and the hero in Paths of Righteousness is a Scotsman. His name is Jacob MacLeod.
You use people characteristics. I find other authors and myself as well use characters that you may come across, not particularly their names or whatever, but maybe their characteristics in some of your characters in your books.
Oh, everybody. I look up, what I generally do when I have a character is I think, who is this character going to be? And 9 times out of 10, they have some Irish in them, like I said. And then I go from there. And what I've started to do is I'll picture the character in my mind, and then I'll go online and I'll look for somebody who looks like I think the character should be. And I have right over here to my right, behind my laptop, I have a gallery for my current work in progress of all the characters' pictures, so that when I'm writing the book, all I have to do is glance over there and I can look at that character and think, what are you going to say? And look at, somebody else looking at my character in the story, and what are they going to see? And that's how I deal with my characters.
That's very fascinating. Has any of your family ever asked if you used their characters in their books?
They wouldn't dare. No, I'm sure they realize that pieces of them are in all of my characters. The pieces of me are in all my characters. I don't base any of my characters on one person.
Right. I think I read something out on your website that you said that your characters speak to you. And when you mentioned your gallery that's in front of you and you can see their faces and all, you said they kind of tell you where they're going or what they're going to do next.
Unfortunately, yes. Sometimes I'll decide, I have in mind what I want to do, and I'll be writing along and I'll thought, well, wait a minute. Something will come into my head, that this isn't going to work. This is what the character needs to do. And I I attribute it to the character talking to me. This is what the character wants. Now, sometimes I listen, sometimes I don't.
It's your book, right?
It's my book.
Now, you said you started writing in what is 2005?
I started writing then, yes.
And you've published what, 5 books to date?
I've published 4 novels and 1 novella.
And 1 novella. And for those that are listening don't know what a novella is, explain to them how that is different.
A novella is a shorter version of a novel. I can't give you the statistics. I'm really bad at remembering what they are, but it's, maybe half of a novel. It might be half a novel. It's a shorter story. It's got all the elements of a novel, but it's just shorter.
Probably kind of like a 30-minute TV show. You don't get all the.
Well, it's more like a movie is about 2 hours. So let's say you have an hour show on TV that's like a movie, but it's not 2 hours. It's only an hour.
So
and they condense everything into that hour.
Well, Sharon, hold on, and our listeners, hang in, because she's got a lot more to share with us and a lot more books. This is Charlotte. Stay tuned.
The 5th annual Authors Marketing Event is coming to Granbury, Texas, July 24th through the 27th. Join us and learn from the professionals how to properly market and sell yourself and your books. Go to ame.authorsmarketingguild.com for all the details. That's ame.authorsmarketingguild.com.
I'm Rox Berkey.
And I'm Charles Brakefield. We're award-winning co-authors, Brakefield and Berkey, of the Enigma book series. There are 10 books in the series, with book number 11 planned for release in January 2020.
Each story has a central technology focus ranging from identity theft to cryptocurrency and now AI wars. These adult techno thrillers pit cyber good guys against cyber thugs across the darknet.
In our world, technology is today's weapon of choice. You can enjoy ebook format, paper, or Audible. We want your feedback.
Until the next story, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
This is Charlotte, and we're speaking with Sharon Connell today, and she is a fascinating author. She writes suspense novels with a Christian twist. Sharon, now we've talked a little bit about a couple of your books, but we haven't really dug in. You've got a couple of others there. I know you've got one coming up, but I want to talk about that last. Share a little bit about your other writings, and have you done short stories, and where would they be?
Oh, I have 2 short stories that are in anthologies. Back there, if you see a white book and a black book peeking out on the first, it's the first level. They are anthologies. One is Tales of Texas, Volume 2, where I have a story about a Texas jewelry store called Ding-a-Ling Holiday Blues. And the other one is an anthology of horror stories, and every time I tell somebody that, they back up. You wrote a horror story? Actually, no, it's not a horror story. It's a spooky story. And when I entered the man who runs the Word Weaver contest was one of my teachers, and he asked me if I was going to enter into this contest, and I said the only thing I have is a spooky story, because I don't write horror stories. He said, that'll work, send it in. And it won 3rd place, so he put it in his anthology, and it's called Spirit Lake. And it's a legend of a place in Minnesota where I used to spend my summers, about a lake called Spirit Lake there, a real lake. So those are my 2 shorts. I have a lot of other short stories, and at the end of this year, after I get this novel published that I'm working on now, I'm planning on putting together a collection of short stories, and both of those stories will be in my collection, because I have the rights to them.
That's to be super. Well, I noticed you've got a book called His Perfect Love. Tell us a little bit about how that one came about and about some of the characters, and give us a little snippet so we want to go read that whole book.
Okay, well, that was my 4th book that I wrote, His Perfect Love, and that was the first one that was written in deep point of view, the way my style of writing now, after I've learned actually how to write. It's about a girl who appears in 2 of my other stories, earlier books. My books are not series, but some of my characters overlap in stories. And she was one that was a girl who caused a lot of trouble and helped the villain in one of my other stories. And she wouldn't leave me alone. After I wrote the 3rd story and got it published, she just was after me about making her right. You can't leave me this way. And I couldn't get her out of my mind, so I wrote a story about her, about how she changed her life around. And in the beginning, she's running from the man that she crossed, his name is Jerry. And when I do my advertisements, a lot of them have, will he find her? And if he finds her, what then?
So you kind of leave some suspense there. She doesn't know. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, she's in hiding in the beginning, and she's scared to death that he's going to find her. And if he finds her, because she crossed him, and he's not a nice guy.
Wow. Now,
and along the way, she wonders if she deserves to ever fall in love for real. And that's part of the plot of the story.
Sounds like a lot of your books have a hint of realism. In other words, they could happen. They may have happened.
Yes, I do that.
Yeah, and the thing that fascinated me, I keep going back to your website, and I'd like you to share with our listeners, you have these little vignettes that go through and give you tidbits on each story, or I read it on several of them. How did you come up with that? Because I hadn't seen that very often.
In the website?
Yes, ma'am.
To be honest with you, I don't know. I just thought it was something that readers might like to have. If I want people to read my books, I want to get them interested in the book. So I'm going to give them a little bit of a taste of my writing and see if they like it. No sense buying the book if you're not going to like my writing. So here's how I write.
Well, it was very fascinating because you would show a picture and have, a statement about the story or about the heroine or the villain in the book. And then you'd go to another picture. In other words, it was almost like you wanted to close your eyes and see what was going to happen next.
Oh, are you talking about the videos?
The little videos, yes, ma'am.
Oh, the book trailers. Okay.
Yeah.
That I got from seeing other book trailers. We see movie trailers all the time, and I watch movie trailers to get ideas of how to do things. The directors in these movies are fascinating to listen to. And I have a friend who's also an author, and she does book trailers. So she did those for me. I tell her what I want the reader to know about the story, and then she puts it together for me.
Well, you might mention right here, we'll do it again later on, but mention your website so that they will know where they want to go.
It's author Sharon K Connell, all strung together. And it's www.authorsharonkconnell.com.
Now, I want to ask you something. This is kind of off topic, but since you've written so many suspense novels, do you ever go out and people recognize who you are from, the back cover of your book? Or, do you ever feel like you're recognized?
I don't think so. No, I've never had somebody come up to me, like they would, I can't think offhand of the author. I'm really bad at names, if you haven't guessed that by now. But if the author of the Harry Potter series, to be honest with you, I wouldn't recognize her if I saw her on the street, but nobody's ever come up to me like that, and say, hey, you're Sharon K Connell, aren't you? I get that online. Occasionally somebody will say, hey, I saw your book, but not in person.
Well, the reason I ask, and I'm sure you do authors shows where you have your books at your table and you're selling your books, that people come up, because I get it occasionally. Someone will meet me and they go, oh my gosh, I've heard about your book. Or, oh my gosh, are you the one that wrote that book? That type of thing. And it's really fascinating, because I, like yourself, I've only been in the author's world a very short time, and it's just a fascinating world. Sharon, hang on, and our listeners, hang on. We're going to take another short break here and tell you more.
Hi, I'm Jerry Reedy, author of the book Heat in the Vegas Night. The book is a true inside story of a group of sophisticated blackjack players that take large sums of money from Las Vegas, led by one man, the boss, who trained a group of ex-college athletes from the Pacific Northwest to use a mirror to see the dealer's hole card in blackjack. The true story, stranger than fiction, is about casino espionage, teamwork, guts and determination, and courage. Find the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Target.
Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, IndieLector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at IndieLector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at IndieLector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's IndieLector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lector, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
This is Charlotte Canion, your host for this evening, and we're speaking with Sharon. Oh my gosh, she's fascinating. Now, Sharon, I know you've got a new book, Icicles to Moonbeams.
That's the novella.
That's your novella. Tell us a little bit about that, and if you have some new works that's coming out, Let us know a little bit about those.
One thing you didn't mention was There Abideth Hope. That was my third book. And I rewrote that one. And everybody really seems to like that one. It's pretty suspenseful and dramatic. And then the last one I did last year was Icicles to Moonbeams, my novella. And that's about a girl, again, she's got a lot of tragedy in her life, but it was sudden and she was from Ireland. She married a young man who brought her from Ireland, and then he has a sudden heart attack and dies. And she's in America all by herself. She doesn't have a whole lot of friends because she hasn't been there that long. And she's just wondering what she should do. She loses her job because of the economy. And she wonders if she's supposed to go back to Ireland. And two animals come along. And while she's sitting on the front porch trying to decide what she's going to do with her life, and they seem to care about her. You know, she sits with them for a while, but she figures they're from the neighborhood somewhere, so she goes inside. The next morning she comes out and they're shivering on the front porch. And she realizes that, oh, she should have taken them in. They're probably lost. And so she sets about to find the owners. And she runs across a doctor again, another doctor. I love putting doctors in my books. But and it turns out that the same thing had happened to him, and he's had these pets for a while, and all of a sudden they got loose from his house. And so, of course, being Christians, we know that God has very strange ways of doing things. So the story takes off from there, and they run into some problems, and of course, and there's a villain. And I can't tell you anymore.
And is that Alana?
Pardon?
Is her name Alana?
Alana.
Alana.
Alana, yes, good
Alana
Irish name.
Alana McCarthy.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like a fascinating book. And can you share any more what you're working on? Do you have something that's coming out this year?
Yes, this year in August, I plan on having a new book, which is a little different. It's called Treasure in a Field. And it's the basis of the story revolves around a legend about a pirate treasure. And there's also a myth about an Indian burial grounds on the property of this farm. And it's set in Nebraska, in a little town in Nebraska.
Now, did you do research on this? Is some of it
Oh, yes.
historical research?
I'm in contact with the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce in North Bend, Nebraska, where this takes place. And he has been a wealth of information.
Can you tell us a little more, give us a little teaser on that book?
Yes, parents die, a girl has to come home from college, and the brother comes to get her and bring her home, and they find out that all kinds of strange things are going on this farm, and there's something strange about the way about her parents' car accident. And it goes from there, and the brother is a lawyer in California, and he never wanted to be a farmer, but the girl, Haley is her name, she has always wanted to live on the farm and farm. So she's the one who's going to be taking over the farm, but all these weird things keep happening, and then somebody else shows up in her life, and an old friend of hers shows up, is there in her life who she's really mad at for something that he did a long time ago. And there's a little mystery in there, so I don't want to give any more.
Yeah, well, it sounds intriguing, Sharon. Sharon, before we let you go, would you please again give them your website and how they can reach you and how they can buy your books?
All my books are on Amazon. My website is www.author.SharonKConnell.com. And I'm on Facebook. I have a book page and I have an author page on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. and they're all under my name.
So all they have to do is do Sharon K Connell.
Yes, and a whole bunch of listings will come up on Google.
Well, Sharon, we want to thank you again for being on our show this evening. And this is Charlotte Canion, your host. And I want to remind you that a rose is like a book. You can't know its beauty until you look at it. And a book is like a rose. You won't know its full beauty until you open it. This is Charlotte Canion. Bye.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Charlotte Canion. Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B. Allen Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B. Allen Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord